love this album.
Thank
I've played
you.
it on the show. I absolutely love the energy that goes into it. So I'm looking forward to getting into that and your career and everything that's going on. So thank you so much for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Of course, yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm
Yeah.
super pumped.
Yeah, me too. So 6 years ago, this pandemic was changing
Mhm.
all of our lives. So many
Oh.
things, especially in the jazz community. How did you get through that era, and how has it influenced the way that you create and operate as a musician today?
Yeah, well, I kind of always say that I think the pandemic is one of the reasons why I ended up in the sort of big band jazz field because I was in college at the time of the pandemic. So, I was studying. I went to Ball State University in Indiana for musical theater.
Yeah.
And so, we all got sent home. And then graduated in 2021, and the pandemic effects were still in effect.
Yeah.
And there wasn't really any work happening in the theater realm because there was still all the distancing restrictions and all of that. And there just really wasn't that much going on. So I moved back home and worked a desk job and lived with my mom. And it was during that time that I was sort of trying to think, okay, theater's not really happening right now. How can I pivot? I still really want to make music. It's something that's like I need to be singing, I need to be creating in any sort of facet. And while I was in college, I actually went and sang with my college's big band because they didn't have a vocal jazz program. So they didn't have any vocal jazz majors or anything. So whenever they needed a singer, they would just hop over to the theater school and be like, who's free? Who wants to sing? And I just so happened to, I always liked jazz music. I always loved specifically big band music. So I was always the go-to gal. And so when I was at home working my desk job, I thought there's concerts and things and jazz happening in Chicago. Of course, in Chicago, there's plenty.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe there is a big band in town who might just want a singer, even to come sit in on like one show, one tune. I don't even know.
Yeah.
But I might as well put myself out there because I'm going a little crazy at this desk job, not singing.
Uh-huh.
And sure enough, I mean, that's how me and Shout Section, who this is our, collaborative album,
Yeah.
came to work together. And from there, I sort of really, really fell in love with big band music and with this band, working with this band in specific. And it sort of all happened from there. And I'm not sure if had the pandemic not happened, had I not moved back home, had I not sort of been in this rut of not much happening in the industry I thought I was really going full force into, I'm not sure it ever would have happened. So, although there was a lot of really terrible things with the pandemic, obviously, I do sort of credit it for this shift I had from the theater world to initially the big band jazz world. Yeah.
It's interesting when I really amped up my interviews during the COVID time period. There was a lot of veteran musicians that were
Hmm.
really kind of nervous about what was going to happen with all of the younger players because people were leaving big cities, the Chicago's and the
Right.
New Yorks. It was expensive, and jazz isn't a lucrative thing. You're not getting into jazz to make money, right? So, right, and you're racking up all this debt. There's so many like economic variables that go into the uncertainty of that
Hmm.
time. But I think now that we've come out of it, I've heard from all these musicians that the community is as strong and as vibrant as ever, if not more. And I think in
Yes.
your scenario, you just had to restructure and find your place,
Totally.
you know? And
Totally.
and getting into this realm, I'm curious, do you feel like you have an old soul? That this kind of, this world that you're in now harkens to maybe you have kind of an ancestral reincarnated soul that's a part of you loving this?
I mean, I think I always have, I think, had an old soul. Like even from when I was fairly young, I was always wanting to listen to Ella Fitzgerald and the jazz standards and these big bands. My mom would sort of always, no one in my family is musicians either.
Yeah.
So I think she just would put on the CDs that her kids were enjoying. And for me, it was always, these random, she had a lot of these like jazz compilation albums of just a bunch of random
Uh-huh.
like things all in one. And I always wanted to put it on. And we've talked plenty over the past few years of her saying, this career for you really makes sense because even from a young age, you gravitated towards it so strongly. And I think that is kind of fun to look back on because maybe I had no idea, but the signs were all there
Yeah.
from when I was young. I was so into the old movies and the old musicals
Huh?
and all of those, all of that music also specifically. So I do feel like I've got a bit of an old soul. And I feel like a lot of people in the big band world do, and that's why we sort of come together.
Yeah, absolutely. This album obviously swings pretty hard. There's a lot going on. The big band realm
Hmm.
is just that way. If you
Oh yeah.
don't feel that swing, you're not operating like on a regular level. It just didn't happen. And what was your philosophy? What was your vision going into this to make the biggest possible impact that you could with this album?
Right. Well, so it's Tatum Swing Session is the name
Yeah,
of the album. So it's obviously directly inspired by the Sinatra Swing Session, which was, not that we took those songs from that album, but we just sort of me and Brett, who is the band leader, sat down and he was like, I think check out this album cover really speaks to me, and this album itself really speaks to me. And I saw the cover and I thought like that reminds me so much of what we've been doing, me and him and his band together for the past few years. And we'd really been just swinging super hard in a lot of venues in Chicago and not even really making music to with the idea of, oh, let's make a record and let's have it sell. We really were just doing it because we were having so much fun together doing it. So when he, came to me and said, I think we should cut a record of sort of just all the tunes we've already been doing and we already love so much, it kind of felt like a no-brainer. Like we'd already fallen in love with all these songs as a band together, and we've already found our own specific sort of swing and groove and fun with them. And so getting into the studio to do them, I mean, we knocked most of the album out in 2 days.
wow.
Just we got in there and we let this thing run. And then,
Yeah.
of course, you go back and do some little fine tunings and re-recordings of a couple things. But it was mostly recorded just in 2 days of all of us just getting together and laying it down and trying to replicate as much as possible the fun that we have and the energy we have on stage in a live performance in the studio.
So the one thing that whether you're a musician or you're a spectator, the one thing that will get stuck in your head that will manifest either subconscious or consciously is the first times that you've seen live shows. What was the first big band, the first show, the first thing that you thought that would be fun one day to get up there and do that?
Yeah, if I'm being honest, I don't know about a first sort of live show in the big band realm that really, got me there because when I was actively sort of falling in love with it as a performer was during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Um, but I will say, since a lot of who I identify as an artist is very theatrical and big band jazz fusion, I do remember as a kid, my mom would take me to, the Broadway and Chicago touring shows. We would try to go to one every year. And every time I went, I just fell in love with the idea of, live performance and music on stage. And so much of the music I saw in these musicals are jazz standards. It's the
Yeah.
Gershwin shows, it's Cole
Uh-huh.
Porter shows. And Anything Goes was a show. Seeing it in person, I fell in love with that music.
Yeah.
And then realizing, oh my gosh, all these jazz singers are singing these same
Yeah.
songs from Anything Goes. Yeah, because it's Cole Porter,
Yeah.
duh.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I will say one sort of album or artist or live performer that even just in listening to records and watching, going down YouTube rabbit holes, Louis Primo was a very big performer inspiration of
Yeah.
mine. Um, and I listened to him a bunch with my mom growing up. I listened to him a bunch with my grandma growing up. She sort of put me onto his records in her car. And I remember just even listening, not even seeing, but listening of thinking he is having so much fun
Oh yeah.
on stage. You can feel the energy in live performance without even having to see it.
Uh-huh.
And I just I'm very inspired by everything he's done because he knows how to obviously make great music, but what really speaks to me with him is just his ability to have fun and be so present on stage with the audience and with the musicians. And if there's a little flub or mess up, it becomes part of the show. And that's the magic of a live performance is, the maybe little hope that you might see you might see a crack in the surface, but you might see what's underneath. And I get that question a lot when it comes to like stage fright or being nervous performing. And I think if you start to integrate the the live aspect of it, every single little mistake is also part of the live music experience for your audience members as well. And I think that's what makes it so human, so real, so special. So
That's
yeah.
totally true. What a great quote. So I'm curious, was it always going to be something artistic for you? Was it always going to be the stage performance? Was that always a foregone conclusion?
I think so. I
Yeah.
think even if I didn't realize it, I was always, putting on shows in my living room and always chasing, I was involved in every sort of performance thing I could get my hands on, whether it was theater or choir, band or orchestra or anything, going through the school system. Um, there was a moment in high school where I did tell my family and my teachers that I wanted to go into computer science, but I'm not quite sure what was happening. I don't know what was happening there. I had a teacher sit me down and say, "We're not doing that. You need to perform, and I think you know that." And I think I just needed someone to give me the okay. And it was hard because no one in my family's musicians, so there was
Yeah.
no sort of model in the career of, oh, this can be a career, this can
Yep.
work.
Yep.
But not that I don't think anyone in my family ever doubted me because they saw me always whipping out a microphone or a guitar at the family parties and saying, "Sit down, it's concert time
Yep.
from Tatum."
Absolutely. So are you familiar with Gunhild Carling?
Yes, I actually just got off tour with her like a week or
You
two ago.
when I saw that album come out, I was like, "What? Wait, hold on a second. You just totally have that vibe." And she's amazing. She just
She
totally
is.
she's. I mean, I talked to her during the pandemic, and her exuberance was washed away all of that weirdness of that time period because she absolutely loves to perform, absolutely loves jazz, loves all the instruments. She's so talented. Like there's just so much that goes into
She is.
her exuberance. It's so cool, you know.
I mean, it's been such a blast. I've gotten to tour with her with Postmodern Jukebox for the past couple of years.
Yeah.
And we always say Gunhild Carling is jazz. Like she is music. Like she, I think, is made up of it. Like
A
she
hundred
cannot
percent.
do anything else.
Yeah,
And it's miraculous to witness because the second she steps off stage, she's pulling out a ukulele saying, "Who wants
sure.
to sing? What are we singing? What are we playing?"
Yeah.
It never stops.
It just spills out of her how much she loves it.
It
And
does.
it's just totally a part of her architecture. So I'm curious, when you finally got the shot and you were in the band, you segued from theater and you got into being a musician, you have these dreams of what this career, what this life is going to be like. And now you're living it. You got the album,
Mhm.
you're doing the gigs. What's been the difference between this dream and the reality of it? What's that space in between?
That is a really great question because I'm like, what is it? It's been super interesting, especially going through an education, a formal education in theater. There's many people and professors and mentors and just your fellow colleagues who, not in a bad way, but have sort of this like Broadway or bust dream. And it's almost sort of like everything has to work towards that one goal. Um, which for a long time was also my same headspace of, what am I doing if not working towards being on Broadway? Um, which of course I would still love to do that just because I've sort of shifted out of the theater world. It's never leaving here. And it's so great that there's seeming to be more and more of a crossover between theater and jazz once again, like how it used to be. I feel like it's almost coming back around a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's been interesting to navigate within myself sort of what the dream looks like in a music career of any kind. Um, and being able to now say over the past couple of years, this has been my full-time gig, full-time job. And I've now been able to, like this album, put out something that really feels like something that I worked really hard on,
Mhm.
something that was a collaboration between all the people and things I love. And I always, not saying I don't have any sort of direction of where I want to go with my career, but I have found a lot of peace and excitement and joy in this sort of in between that I do feel like I'm still living in a little bit. And of course, I'm still so young. There's still so much music to be made and
Sure.
things to be done in my career. And there's always I've had some career panic, of course, as anyone has had of what am I doing and
Yep.
where do I want to go? Where do I want this to take me? And I have sort of let that go a little bit and just really reveled in the present of I'm here now.
Yep.
I'm living in a city that is my favorite city in the world. I'm making music with this band and, just collaborating with other musicians that feels like such a perfect match of creative energy. And wherever that might take me next, it will take me there. And maybe that feels like a cop out of the question. I don't know.
No, no, no,
But
no. Yeah.
it's been a huge thing I've been grappling with, and I feel like this past year I've spent it just trying to realize that I've dreamed of being where I am, and if I'm still finding joy, still finding creative inspiration, then why rush to what's next
Yeah.
when what will come next, and
Yeah.
it'll make sense and it'll come in due time. But for right now, I've had one of the most, I guess you could say also commercially successful years of my life, but also the most creatively fulfilling year of my life.
Yeah. You know, what I find interesting doing this show now for 15 years, I always notice that, I mean, and we joked around about how jazz isn't this lucrative art form, but I've noticed that singers, there's been a handful of singers that I've seen over time that have absolutely exploded into like Samara Joy. I interviewed her about a year before
Oh,
she blew up, and
she's
I just
amazing.
saw her in Kansas City at a sold out show, and it was just like she's just a superstar. And then yesterday, I'm walking by the TV and Kelly Clarkson has Laura Anglade on. And I just saw her in
Oh,
Kansas City a month ago. And I'm starting to see her more. She was on Stephen Colbert. It's like I just have noticed this influx, and it seems to be singers that they're getting to this point where they're like getting into this realm that's not typical for jazz, you know?
hmm.
Right? So, do you
Yes.
ever think about those things about how these singers just all of a sudden are on everything, winning Grammys in the middle of the soup?
Yes, well, with Samara Joy when she won, what was it, a year or two ago?
Yeah.
She won the best new artist at the
Uh-huh.
Grammys. Like
Yeah.
just best new artist, not even in the jazz sector.
Yeah.
And that was a moment I was telling all my friends, Samara Joy just won best new
Right.
artist.
Right.
And a lot of them, maybe some who are less in the jazz world are like, yeah, I was watching it and I had no idea who that was, but then I looked her up and this album is so good. And I think for a long time and still currently, music as a whole, people got so maybe a little too caught up in putting people in, you have to be in the jazz world, you have to identify as a rock singer,
Hmm.
you have to, you can't really cross over for whatever reason. And I feel like in the past few years that has come down a little bit,
Yeah.
both with that and Veronica Swift now, who
Totally.
is kind of made a big statement of like, I am being very intentional about wanting to shift into other genres and I'm
Huh?
still me, but this is a very intentional choice I'm making. And, seeing people just be able to do that with a bit more acceptance
Yeah.
from audiences, I think it's really, really cool. Or there's so many like pop singers
Yep.
who are now transitioning into Broadway,
Right.
which there's a whole lot of discussions about that. But it's people who, like me, they're like, I grew up doing theater, and that theater kid's always been in me. And I've been making music in this pop world for so long, or the jazz world, the rock world. And now I've been given this opportunity to bring my fan base to a different genre, or to bring the genre to different people who might not have thought to explore it before. And I think it's a cool time we're living in specifically, I guess, as you said, the like vocalist jazz
Yeah,
world.
yeah.
It's weird and it's cool.
That's an interesting perspective because there are these cross-genre things. Like I even think about like Taylor Swift. She was doing
Mhm.
country for a little while and then she's pop. There was like all of this undulation, but at the end of the day, you're a musician. I think right now in 2026, just as long as it's not AI, as long as it's not right,
Yes.
that's it. As long as it's a human interacting with humans, that's it. That's all we want. And to feel
Yes.
that dystopian notion right now is as far-fetched as it is, it's true because
Oh
it's
no, it's
a
here.
fear. Yeah,
It's here.
it's right here.
It's
It's
terrible.
yeah, it certainly is. So at the end of the day, you've talked about listening to compilations and loving all of the, Cole
Mhm.
Porters and all of the jazz. At the end of the day, why do you love jazz? Just overall, why do you love it?
It lives and breathes in a way that is different than most other genres, I think. At least to me personally, I feel like I have a very mixed background of music, grew up in the theater, but I started voice lessons to be a country singer when I was a kid. And then in high school, I was in all of the chamber and madrigal music and all of that. So I feel like I've gone through the gambit of a lot of different musical genres and landscapes, and I do think that informs who I am as a musician a ton. But what is just so the reason why jazz will never ever ever go anywhere or ever die is I think because it exists. It requires presence and it requires a sort of immediate attention and listening to everyone around you that I don't think every genre maybe not requires, but emphasizes as much. You know, you get on stage with whoever musicians, whether it's with me on stage with Shout Section Big Band or me stumbling into a jam session at a jazz bar I didn't even know was happening. It requires you to really be in touch with every single person on stage and every single person in the audience. I always sort of emphasize in my shows that the audience is as much of a part of this evening as us on stage
Yeah,
because you can perform to nobody and it is still amazing and you're still making discoveries on stage, but the audience really is a part of the show. I feel like especially in jazz, you're thriving off of their energy. You might be responding to something that happens in the room, and jazz gives you the freedom to do that.
yeah,
You know, in a musical, you're playing the exact same song in the exact same way every night. And that's special in and of itself. But jazz gives you permission and it encourages you to be present and breathe with the room, with the audience, with the
yep,
band, with the music. And I think in my earlier moments of performing in jazz, that was really scary to be on stage and there is a notion of we don't know what'll happen next, or maybe we don't know what'll happen during the solo section or whatever. And it was so terrifying. And I've completely rounded the corner now of, oh, that's what makes this special.
yep.
That's what makes this unlike anything. And yeah, it's just I think that's what makes jazz so just so special.
It
And
is.
I could I'm like could get emotional talking about it, but it really it's just so cool, and I feel still so new and fresh into this world of jazz. You know, you talk to people who, oh, I've been playing this residency for 40 years. But there's a reason that they're still doing that and finding the joy in it because it's constantly living and breathing.
Yep,
And you can keep discovering things, but getting younger musicians with older musicians to play together and how cool that is to sort of see two worlds and languages
yep.
overlap and meet together and be able to find cool things together. It's really, really special.
Agree. So if you could get into a time machine and go back in time and see one performance, one jazz show, where are you going? Where are
Oh
you
my
going to
God.
land?
I was talking about this last night.
Wow. Okay, you're ready.
I, and maybe this is like a little cheesy and I don't care. I would go back in time and I would see the Rat Pack live at the
Of
Sands
course.
in
Why wouldn't you?
Vegas.
Right. No.
I would kill to be in that
Yeah.
room and
Uh-huh.
experience the shenanigans and energy that was happening.
100%. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
That was
I
the
listened to that album all the time.
Yeah. No, that would be it. That would be the time. Old Vegas, those guys
Oh,
mucking it up with the whiskey and
oh my
cigarettes and
God.
the laughter, the banter, the just all of it. It would be wonderful. So let me ask you this. At the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends,
Mm.
fans, everyone on the bandstand that you play with, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Oh, oh my gosh.
This is
Who
the
do I
therapy
think I
part.
am?
Who do you think you are? I should have said it like a rat pack. Who do you think you are?
Who do you think you are? I don't know. Um, no, I think kind of like I said a little earlier, I feel like I'm a big amalgamation of every single musical influence that has approached me so far. And I think it's one of my just sort of strengths and draws as a person, as a musician, on and off stage, is that I bring an energy that is both electric and demanding, but it's also very welcoming and warm and unafraid to see what happens next, unafraid to mess up a little, unafraid to go with the flow. And I do think my name Tatum actually means joy bringer, and I feel that is very true about who I am on and off stage with any band, with any group of people. Um, I really think that is what I bring. I try and bring joy to everything I do,
Yeah,
and
I think.
I think people would agree with that.
Yeah. So Tatum Swing Session, wonderful album. I've already profiled it on the show. It's streaming everywhere. If anybody wants a copy, they want to catch you live, any of the other good business, where do they go?
Yes, well, you can go to shoutsection.com.
Okay.
So that's shoutsection.com as in Shout Section Big Band. And you can order vinyl copies of the album. You can purchase a direct download if you don't have a streaming subscription. You can purchase a CD. And also the CDs and vinyls, they each include an exclusive track that is not on streaming anywhere. So if you're into growing your physical collection, there's a little perk there. And then shoutsection.com also has the calendar of all of Shout Section Big Band's shows. You also can go to tatumlangley.com that has my specific calendar since I'm sometimes not in town, but sometimes I'm performing without them. They're sometimes performing without me.
Yeah.
But hit up those two places.
Okay.
You can check out those calendars and check out the album, Tatum's Swingin' Session.
I love it. I will put all these links in the show notes. Tatum, this has been an absolute joy. Thank you so much for taking a minute out.
Oh,
Have a wonderful 2026.
thank you, Joe. You too.
Yeah.
Neon Jazz.